From the Corner Office is brought to you by Synovus Bank, championing business growth through trusted, relationship-driven banking throughout the Gulf Coast region. Dan Lavender, CEO of Moorings Park in Naples, is a driven and focused executive, both on his mission overseeing one of the largest senior living communities in Southwest Florida and staying ahead of industry trends. The Business Observer writes about executives like Dan and the trends that drive their industries every day online and every week in print. Go to businessobserverfl.com to subscribe. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Dan Lavender, CEO of Moorings Park in Naples. Dan, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks. Looking forward to it.
Dan, we're going to get into Moorings Park and what that is and what you guys do there, and also your career in senior living and senior care. Before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better. Let's get our audience to know you a little bit better with 3 rapid fire questions.
All right.
We're going to start with, if you had a time machine, would you go back in time or into the future, and why?
I would probably go back in time. There's some things I'd like to see. I'd be afraid if I went into the future, I'd miss, right? I want to see how we get there. And if I go just to the end game, I feel like I would miss something in there. So I'd go back in time.
Back in time. I like it. All right. If you had to delete all the apps on your phone and only keep 3, what are the 3 apps you would keep?
All right, I'd keep my Aura ring here so I could keep my sleep, heart rate.
That's the sleep ring, okay.
Health, all that stuff together. I'd have to do the text messages because that's how I communicate with my daughters specifically, who are 30 or so, and communicate with a lot of people. And then the third one would be the app I have called Lose It, which I put on there about 10 years ago, and it tracks what you eat and helps me stay healthy.
So you have two of the, that's interesting to me, 2 of the 3 are health generated, and when you're not sleeping well, when Aura's telling you you're not sleeping well, do you sort of adhere to that and change your patterns? Like, do you adhere to what they're telling you to do?
I do. It's changed my behavior. I don't let it rule my life, but it has made me rethink about how late I eat. When's the last time I look at my screens and all that kind of stuff. And it is amazing how big of an impact that can have on your sleep and how big of an impact that can have on how you feel the next day.
Well, that's what I was curious about, right? We're so used to having this, and then I just held up my phone, and then, you go to bed right after that. Bad habits. I need good habits.
That's right.
All right, Dan, so let's get into Moorings Park. Tell us, again, for people who don't know, what's kind of the elevator pitch? What is Moorings Park?
Yeah, I'll give you the 2-minute. We now have 3 continuing care retirement community or life plan communities in Naples, Florida. We serve about 1,200 residents, and on those continuing care retirement community sites, we have independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing. So people move in when they're very active, and they expect us to keep them active and healthy. But if their health declines, we have the assisted living and the skilled nursing services to provide to them right on the site. We are a full life care, so you don't pay any extra when you go for those extra services.
Got it. And you have 3 locations in Naples, and you've been in senior living for a little bit of time. Tell us about how you got into this career.
Sure. My wife and I started a business out of college, and we were working all the time and making about $5 an hour. And so one of us had to get a job. And so that was me. So I went out, looked for a job, and I got right into senior living. I started with Ohio Presbyterian Retirement Services, which is now Ohio Living. Had an 8-year stint there, 8-year stint at Methodist Elder Care Services in Ohio, where I lived all my life, and then came to Moorings Park in 2006.
And that's it. So you guys started a business right away. What was that in, you and your wife?
We started what we called the Mail Connection, and that's MAIL. And that was a UPS store or a FedEx store before UPS or FedEx thought of that. And we learned very quickly what scale and size and global marketing can do to a little business.
Yeah, right.
But we had the idea first, so there you go.
You'll always have that. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, getting into leadership, as you mentioned, the community's got different different elements. So I'm sure there's a lot of people reporting to you, and then there are people reporting to the people reporting to you, obviously.
That's correct.
So tell us about leadership in general. Maybe start with this. What defines good leadership to you, Dan?
Well, I think leadership to me is just influence, and I'm not an expert on leadership, but I'm a student of leadership, and I think you're always learning more about it. But the best definition of leadership I've ever heard was in Jim Collins's books, where he called Level 5 leadership, which was a combination of humility and professional will, and I think that defines a good leader for me.
So what is that? Let's talk about humility. Obviously, what does humility mean to you in the workplace?
Humility means that you don't think too much about yourself as a leader. If it's about you as the leader, I don't think you're going to be a great leader. It's about empowering others to be their best. And as a leader, if you're empowering others to be best. And professional will, things are hard. Leadership is hard. Things don't happen easy. And you better have a lot of conviction about what you think the right thing is to do, because if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. And so I think that combination of not taking yourself too seriously and thinking about the organization above yourself and other people above yourself, and yet, having the professional will to get things done is what makes a good leader.
Yeah, the will is interesting. I wrote recently, and I met a person who spoke about holding people accountable, a leadership seminar. And I guess this is known, maybe you know about this. I had not heard of it. He called it the will, skill, and hill. And so you're trying to find out if the person has the will, as you just talked about.
Yes.
And then if they do, is it a skill issue? Like, have they not been trained properly? And then is it a hill issue? Like, do they have a family thing going on? Do they not have the right computer? So I thought that was an interesting way of saying it.
I think it really is. It's about making sure they have the right competencies and then making sure you can remove barriers, because you're going to be successful if the other people are being successful.
Yeah. Who or what? You mentioned Jim Collins obviously has some fantastic leadership books. Who or what has influenced your leadership and your leadership style?
Well, I think I've been under a lot of good leaders. Talk about a full circle moment. Glenn Gronlund was the CEO of Ohio Presbyterian Retirement Services when I started there 30 some years ago. He's now a resident at Moorings Park.
Really?
So I saw how he led an organization, and that certainly helped me. When I came down here in 2006, I came as the CFO, knowing that the CEO was about to retire, and he did in 2009. I've been the CEO since then. And so Gunther Gosch, who was preceded me as the CEO, would be one of the mentors that I would add to that list as well.
What did you learn from him? What sort of stands out, some lessons, practice and theory lessons that you learned from him?
Well, I think that Gunther got up every morning, and he was a mission-driven organization. And no matter what was going on, he always focused on what the end result was. He had a great ability to get past I'm right and you're wrong into we're both trying to make Moorings Park better, and what is the issue we're talking about? And I learned a lot about that from him.
Yeah, and I wanted to take a step back. I meant to ask you, we were talking about Moorings Park, because you've had these residents, you've been there 15 years, and you have hundreds and hundreds of residents. I bet you've encountered some pretty amazing people who have led these just terrific lives. What stands out? I'm sure there's a lot, but what are some stories that you've heard of residents at Moorings Park?
Oh yeah, we've had residents here that have patents all over the place, and one of the principals that started Cisco has lived here. And, I'll tell you this, a lot of them tell me, first of all, they're thoughtful leaders, right? They're thoughtful achievers. And so they believe in this. It's not all about me, this level 5 thing. But they've also taught me, and many of them have told me, being in the right place at the right time with the right product is more important than anything. So you have to separate success from leadership, right? And success can be right. You can have very low leadership skills and be in the right place at the right time with the right product. When you go beyond and above that, and you start thinking about the success of others and empowering others, I learn over and over again, that's what makes a great leader.
Yeah, for sure. Right place, right time. There's so many examples of that.
Yeah,
throughout.
you think about it. We have a lot of people here that were in the air conditioning business, right? And they were in the air conditioning business when it was getting invented, right? So you had an unlimited market for quite a long time there, and things like that really lead to success.
Yeah. Yeah, Dan, talk about decisions as a leader. What's a tough decision that you made that you think helped shape either your leadership style or shape the way Moorings Park is operated today?
Well, I think the toughest leadership decisions are always about, and I'm going to go back to using Jim Collins' language again. Do you have the right people on the bus? And so when you get somebody the way you described it earlier, where it's a skill deficit, you have to make determinations if they can get the skill necessary to climb the hill or if not. And so I think those are always the toughest decisions. When's it time to turn away either from people or from a project? We got a great idea. We're trying to make it work. It's not happening. Some of the best decisions you make as a leader is, okay, we're going to withdraw from that and we're going to focus our resources over here, because that's what a big part of leadership is. How are you focusing your resources? How are you evaluating what's being productive and what's not? And when is it necessary to stop an activity?
Yeah, that's such a measure it and then make that decision when, all right, we're going to pull the plug on this. Loosely related, my next question was going to be balancing short-term wins with your long-term vision, because the healthcare industry changes quite rapidly. And we think about the past, we're recording here in mid-November, and I guess kind of sort of the government shutdown is over, but maybe not. I don't know when you're listening to this, but that impacted healthcare, obviously. So you have to be thinking short-term and long-term. How do you balance it?
Yeah, I think we're fortunate here in Moorings Park. We're a 501c3 not-for-profit. And so we believe in giving back. And we also have a board and a leadership team that's really focused on the long term. But you have to have both, right? If you're totally focused on wait for it 3 years for our residents and then you'll be great, you can't do that. So you always have to be reinventing yourself and coming up with new things and making sure the experience today is fantastic. Yeah. But we're structured for the long-term success, and that's what I think that's been a big part of Moorings Park's success. Because we have that 501c3 not-for-profit status, we believe in giving back, and we believe in making sure that we have long-term sustainability. And I think in healthcare, those are really aligned. I think when you're focused on the next quarter in healthcare, I think that's a lot more challenging to balance the short-term versus the long-term.
Well, yeah, you certainly could get into a whole bunch of podcasts about private equity in healthcare and how that has impacted short-term versus long-term.
Yeah, and it's happening in our industry too. Our industry is developing, and we're seeing private equity buy facilities, lease them back to the owners, and it is creating a different structure and a different pressure for instant returns rather than long-term sustainable success.
Yeah, I very, very true. Dan, on another topic of leadership, how do you handle conflict? Whether it is within employees or teams, or conflict could be good to a certain extent, but you also have to obviously manage it as a leader. How do you handle conflict as a leader?
Yeah, I think the worst thing you can do as a leader for conflict is to ignore it and expect it to go away. But sometimes that's the best thing you can do. Sometimes when other people solve problems and you don't have to get in, that can be the best. But when an issue becomes conflict, you have to confront it. And I think you have to confront it. Mark, I talked about it earlier. You have to focus on, you and I have the relationship, and here's the problem over here. So how you and I work together to come to some kind of an agreement on what's over here. And unfortunately, sometimes as a leader, if you can't get to some kind of resolution, you do have to just make a decision and move on. And hopefully you have enough trust in your bucket that it'll be accepted and everybody can move forward together.
Yeah. On another topic about, sort of moving forward, talk about resilience as a leader. You obviously were there during COVID, so you had that to address, and obviously an elderly population. But talk to me in general, talk to our audience in general, Dan, about as a leader, how do you overcome challenges, difficulties, setbacks?
Yeah, I think we've been talking about that as an organization for some time now. And the best way we've described the way the world is going on was something that came out of the 1997 Army. And it is VUCA. I don't know if you've ever heard of that term. It's volatility, ambiguity, complexity, and uncertainty.
Yeah.
And
VUCA.
they used it to describe what was happening to the world when Russia was breaking up. But we've used it internally to make sure that our leaders understand that in the world today, those are not the exception, those are the norm. And you've got to be ready to pivot and be agile and be resilient, just as you've done. So we try to bring in training sessions to help people get ready for that. And I think if you have an attitude that those things are going to happen and I need tools to address them, it helps an organization move forward.
Yeah, so that sounds like that's something you've actively talked about with your team, and they've talked about with their teams, the sort of VUCA mindset.
Absolutely. I think it was about 2022, we began, at least at the senior executive level, to have a small part of the incentive compensation be on a VUCA rating. How did you deal with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity this year? And so when you're doing that, people are constantly thinking about it. They know you're going to be talking about it. And so it gives you a framework to move forward when things like that happen.
That's really, I like that, VUCA. We're gonna incorporate that into more podcast questions. I like it. That's another thing you've invented. Well, you didn't invent VUCA.
No,
you
I didn't.
It
The 1997 Army War College invented
Yes, all right. Give credit to them.
Businesses have adapted. I've heard it in a lot of business settings.
Yes.
Well. Yeah.
We've had a previous guest on, A.G. Lafley, who was CEO of Procter & Gamble and lives in Sarasota now, and he's talked about VUCA as well and how he used that in the corporate setting. Going a little bit more personal, Dan, how do you want your team to describe you as a leader? You know, what words or phrases would they use?
Well, I don't know what words or phrases they would use, so I'll answer the first part first. I'm going to cite somebody else. I think Craig Groeschel writes books that I really like, and he says, to be somebody who builds trust, you got to be transparent, you got to be consistent, and you got to have empathy. And so those are the three words I'd like to have people describe me. He's consistent, he's empathetic, he tries to understand my point of view, and he's transparent, or at least he does his best to let us know why he's making the decisions that he's making.
A big three, a good three. I like it. Yeah. Excellent. Dan, as one last question, as we're sort of getting toward the end of 2025 here, what can we look forward to at Moorings Park in 2026? What are some things top of mind into next year going on?
Well, I think Moorings Park's mission has been about successful aging, and our market, the way we portray ourselves in the market is if you move into Moorings Park, we're going to give you the tools to live your best life possible. And so we're going to be focused on your physical, emotional, and social health. And, we've been reading books like Peter Attia's Medicine 2, I'm Aura Ring. How do you make a better life for yourself? And we are going to start in 2026 with 2 meetings with every single resident annually and ask them how they're doing and make sure that they understand all the resources that we have here and try to help them make their best life possible. We've had a relationship with Johns Hopkins for about 6 years now. They put a geriatric fellow in our site, and we've been creating longitudinal data around grip strength and walking speed and emotional health. And so we're going to now take that data we've gained over 5 years, have these individual meetings, and try to help our residents thrive. I'm really excited about that.
Excellent. A lot of big things happening in Moorings Park. I love it. Dan Lavender, CEO of Moorings Park in Naples, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.